was the last time we spoke when you were around my house watching a film, all three of us.
Yes, and that was for Halloween as well,
wasn't it? I think it was, yeah. I think did we
2
watch
years ago?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Okay. We did.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, they always say as long as podcasts are regular, it can be annually, weekly, it's fine.
Once a decade.
More than 3 is a trend.
Hello, my friend and fellow film fan. Welcome back to Disc 2, your movie podcast talking about films, whether it's new, whether it's old, whether we like it, whether we hate it, it will be spoken about. I'm your host, Rhiannon Evans, lovely to meet you. And I'm joined by movie gurus Martyn Kane and Lee Stevens. Now, I know Hoptune/Halloween is over, but the winter months really are a time of ghost stories and spooky tales. So we're going to continue that by talking about our favourite horror films and the ones that have truly terrified us and left us with unresolved trauma that will definitely affect our future offspring. So come in and get settled, help yourself to popcorn, and thank you very much for joining us here at Disc 2.
Yeah, so favourite one, I think because like Lee and myself are in our, well, I've just found out he's 40, but of that age where we're sort of 80s, 90s kids. I know, yeah. I sort of thought like the favourite horror films are always kind of like the similar ones, so you get like a Hellraiser or a Nightmare on Elm Street, and they're all like the classics. So I wanted to have a think about something that I've enjoyed recently-ish. And I really enjoyed Lighthouse, the Robert Eggers film.
What made your last keeper leave?
He believed that there was some enchantment in the light. Went mad, he did. Tall tales. But Bob. What? Bob. What? What? Bob. What? 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 Daddy! Let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow! All right, have it your way.
It's Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe play lighthouse keepers, and the idea of it is that Robert Pattinson comes onto an island where the lighthouse is to relieve Willem Dafoe of his duties, so they take over, and it's like 2-year round thing, a bit like our podcast here. But what happens is the weather comes in and they're not able to leave the island, so then what I could only describe as like extreme cabin fever sets in, and the pair of them lose their minds. And it's sort of like with like Robert Eggers when he did like The Witch, and it's got this sort of folk horror feel to The Witch, obviously because it's set in the forest, it's about a witch. It kind of feels like The Lighthouse is a similar thing, because like almost like a lighthouse keeper is quite an old-fashioned job now, even though it still happens, but it's not even like a nostalgic job, it's like folklore kind of thing. And so the way this sort of like is portrayed is it's not sort of set in modern day times anyway, but with it all being in black and white, and like something like The Witch was really dark in subject matter, and literally like even the daytime scenes were quite grey and quite dark. This is really dark.
Because it's in black and white.
Because it's in black and white, because as the two characters sort of gradually go more and more crazy, you kind of like the horrible little voice in your brain sort of thinks, oh God, this is going to happen soon, and then it does happen, and you're like, oh God almighty, that's horrible. So I won't say what it is that happens.
Well, I had no idea that Lighthouse was a horror film.
Right, okay. So it's like, yeah, I guess it is a horror. I suppose you could sort of say it's like a psychological... It's not a psychological thriller, it's like a psychological horror.
Yeah.
Kind of thing to it.
And will you reveal the ending?
There's a mermaid. Weirdly.
There's a mermaid?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the end. I won't say like the horrible bit. Let's just say Robert Pattinson has an experience which he probably will be scarred for life with.
Okay.
One thing I didn't realise, a friend of mine told me, is that it's actually a remake. But weirdly, the original was only 3 years before the Robert Eggers version came
That's
out,
interesting.
which is very strange.
That the original director must feel a
Yeah.
bit,
So it was a bit
rubbish.
Yeah, I mean the original one was like quite an indie. It was a BFI and S4C as like the Welsh TV station. It was something done with them, and it was based on a the same thing, except instead of it being set in New England, it's set just off the Irish Sea in Wales. So two actors who I can't remember their names. Both of them have been in our Star Wars at some point, playing bit parts. But yeah, definitely not of the sort of levels that sort of Robert Eggers took it to. But yeah, it's just it's a really good film. It's very dark, and I'd watched. Do you know a film called Bait?
I've heard of Bait.
Yeah, so it's about a fishing village in Cornwall, and how the locals there get fed up of people buying holiday homes and then just coming in the summer and then leaving the place in the winter again. So it's about the tensions between the locals and the holiday makers. Yeah. So I'd watched that at a similar time, so it was kind of like black and white sort of thing, and yeah, it was just it's a great watch. Yeah.
Would you recommend it?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Maybe start in like, it's not like one of those sit down, I'm in the mood for a horror, let's have a nice night kind of thing. You better start in a more happier disposition than normal.
Okay.
Because by the time you get to the end of the film, you're going to think life's really grim.
Okay. I feel great, but I don't want to.
It's got. Have you ever seen Mother?
Yes.
Yeah. So it kind of you know how that sort of goes a bit surreal, and you're like, is this sort of a dream? Is it actually happening? It sort of starts going down that kind of road as well, with it. So you're a bit like, you become a bit disorientated and getting a bit of cabin fever with them, as well as the characters.
I didn't put that down, but I think that's my favourite, what I'd think of as modern horror film.
Oh, it's an awesome one. I'll stop talking.
Lee?
I put The Shining down.
Here's Johnny. I'm coming down.
Come and play with us.
It's my favourite horror film of all time.
Well, you are getting a tattoo of it. So.
I've already started.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I just think it's a perfect film, and it's what I noticed something. I don't know if we're going to go through these like one by one, but I've noticed that my favourite horror is always the ones that kind of stick you somewhere else. You know,
How do you mean?
They sort of block out everywhere else and kind of drag you on a little journey with them. You know?
Okay, yeah.
There's loads of films you watch where, let's say, like The Batman's a good example of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good film to watch. It's a long film, but you're still sat on your sofa watching a film. It's
The
films
new
like
Batman.
The Shining. Yeah.
Did I tell you I fell asleep during that?
Wow.
I
I don't blame you.
There's going to be a murder in the studio.
I loved that film.
I know you did. I think I was already tired.
Okay,
and
yeah.
it was a very dark film.
It was
Like
very dark
visually,
film, yeah.
there wasn't a lot of light, and everyone was speaking like this. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I was flinching awake because I dreamt
Not
I
sure
got a
what you
netball in the
expected
face.
from a Batman film.
No.
But,
Anyway, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it was really like left field. Why was everyone speaking so quietly?
yeah, it's like, where's the whams and the pows gone? But I just realised my favourite type of horror films are the ones that kind of drag you along with it. And
Right, okay, yeah.
like transport you somewhere else. There always has to be like a slight fantasy element for me.
Okay,
I think,
yeah.
when it comes to horror films,
Like otherworldly.
yeah. Just and I think for anyone that's watched the documentary about The Shining, just like the way that was like purposely made to sort of discombobulate you when you're watching it by having people essentially walk out of doors which would have been freezers on the map of the hotel.
Okay, yeah.
And it just to subconsciously confuse people while they're watching it. I think it's genius, isn't it?
Well, it's an excellent shout. One of my favourites is Stephen King as well. Specifically, It Part 1.
Nice.
It Chapter 1.
Yeah.
New or old?
New.
Yeah.
New. I mean, I love the old one, which was 1990, starring Tim Curry, who I think is a completely underrated.
Oh, he's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he can just do so much.
Yeah.
Who else could portray Pennywise and then play Long John Silver singing in a Muppets movie? And play Frankenfurter.
And play Frankenfurter.
Yeah.
You don't want to get... Well, as well, if you think... Like, some people say things like that, don't they, about, like, Harrison Ford. And you go, he was Han Solo and Indiana Jones and so, yeah, you look at, like, Tim Curry and the cult characters that he's played. Is like just crazy. He's sort of responsible for a lot of real underground, and still even now, you know, like Pennywise and Frankenfurter are still real sort of subversive characters, and it's the same person, the same guy.
I think he's brilliant. But that wasn't my favourite version. I did specifically like the 2017 version. Now, is it Bill Skarsgård?
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah, I thought he was fantastic, and I was reading that he took inspiration for Pennywise from The Dark Knight and Clockwork Orange, which is really cool. But
He was brilliant in that film.
he was, really, really good. And I liked Part 1 a little bit better than Part 2.
I thought Part 2 was too funny.
It was a bit silly,
Yeah.
but apparently it was very true to the book. Have you read the book?
Right?
No.
It's very thick.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had it as a kind of
As a doorstop.
teenager, and it was always one of those ones that was on the shelf to go, I'll get around to that one day.
It's massive. So that's probably because I wanted to pick something up to date. It was between It Part 1 or Misery, which came out in 1990.
Yeah.
Another Stephen King. Kathy Bates got the Oscar.
Yeah.
So apparently they're remaking that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who have they got in?
I don't know. I was
role?
looking to you to get
Okay.
confirmation,
Sorry.
but maybe they're not.
No, well, I mean, there's loads of, like, Netflix have put loads of Stephen King stuff out and made a load of new stuff, haven't they? So it wouldn't surprise me if they go for it. But then I liked the remake of Carrie.
What did you like about it?
I just quite liked, is it Chloe Moretz?
Yeah.
I just like the way, like, she sort of portrayed what's already, again, like an iconic character, and the sort of sissy space act. Like, she's so known for being that. It's like trying to replace an actual person. I just think she did a really great job on it, and she was good in Suspiria as well.
I think, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, it felt like just a fresh coat of paint on that film. It didn't feel like it detracted like from the original, and it was just more a case of, if you try and watch this film now, just the like styling, cars, way people dressed, it can be quite jarring, especially for young people. Whereas just slap some different clothes on it, put it out.
Are we still talking about Carrie?
Yeah. And lo and behold, it's still a really good film.
Yeah, nice. That's cool, because it can kind of go either way, can't it? Okay, let's move on to films that have really, really frightened you. And we're talking, you have to keep the light on at night.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, have you done that?
No.
Oh, yeah, no, me
I don't
neither,
think.
definitely haven't.
I don't, like, I always have this thing of there was a scene in a TV adaptation of The Phantom of the Opera that was on when I was really young, and I'm sure it was on like early evening. It must have been early evening because I was still up. And there's a scene in it where the Phantom comes into a dressing room and pours a suitcase of rodents on the main actress. That made me sort of go, okay, I'm not going to turn the light on, but I'm going to run up the stairs to my bedroom. But as I was thinking about this, because we were talking about over a message about what we were going to talk about, and like things that have sort of really unnerved you, what it sort of reminded me of is, again, as a kid, being in like video rental shops, but seeing the posters and the cardboard cutouts. And so there was some of the ones I was trying to think of, and again, it was like you were saying about like Misery. It's early 90s stuff.
Yeah.
So the things like Arachnophobia and Jacob's Ladder, Child's Play 2, where he's got the scissors on the Jack in the Box. I scared myself as a child from the poster without actually watching it, because I didn't see the film because I was 8, 9, 10ish.
Imagination.
And
it's
the
reason
imagination.
You're on the Arts Council.
Well, you know.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. It's fine. But like stuff like that, and like Candyman and Silence of the Lambs stuff, you know, you're almost scared of it before you've even seen it. And that was the old thing that they did with like The Exorcist and The Last House on the Left in the 70s. That was the advertising campaign for it. They got you scared before you walked into the cinema.
Yeah.
And so I remember a lot of those sorts of films were the ones that would stay with me. Even after I'd watched it, you've terrified yourself before you've hit play.
It's good marketing, that, isn't it?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. I mean, I don't. Most of those films didn't even mean to do it. It's just that they were, as I say, they had these big cardboard cutouts or the big posters, and the posters were scary. So when you finally get around to watching it years later, and I don't know what happened with me personally, but because I was looking at the years of all these films, and like as I say, these are like 1990 to 1993. 1994 came about, and things like Interview with a Vampire and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and I remember those being advertised and just thinking, oh great, okay. Like it didn't worry me, like scare me at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know what. Maybe it's just that growing up that I'd hit sort of like 11 at that point. So you sort of realise they're all films and it's not real or whatever. But yeah.
I think there was a transition into gore as well. I think that might be one of the big things, because I don't find that. I mean, it can be gross, but gory death scenes are rarely scary.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there was maybe jump scares as well. People relying more on jump scares and taken away from that sort of horrible psychological thing that makes you feel a bit icky and your shoulders go all tight.
Speaking of gore, just on a little tangent, I was reading the Guardian's article on, is it called The Terrifier? Is that
Terrifier?
That's like a black and white clown. Have you seen any of those films?
No. But I've seen Terrifier 2 advertised a lot recently.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't seen any of them.
Apparently that relies just purely on shots of people being
disemboweled.
In very creative ways, and like the difference is that the camera just films everything.
Right.
So
okay.
I don't think, as a horror fan, I don't think that really ticks a box for me.
No, I think it's quite like I'm probably the same as you in that it's quite saturated. That sort of like early 2000s thing when like Saw and Hostel and all that lot came out, and that was just kind of literally done to death. Where then you had stuff like Human Centipede, which was just terrible, but people making it for the sake because they thought people wanted to see horrible stuff.
I will.
You like Human Centipede?
No. I'll defend Human Centipede 1.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a good film.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, and you know, like the frequency of like the Saw films. There was the first, what was it, 7 of those came out year on year for 7 years. So it just got a bit much, I think. And I don't know whether we've had enough time to warrant bringing that sort of thing back again. As I say, like the Robert Eggers stuff and the Ari Aster and like Jordan Peele.
Ari Aster and Jordan Peele are fantastic.
Yeah, they've sort of like paved this new way of horror, which works on like a Hollywood level kind of thing. And I think there's a bit more of that to come before you start sort of subverting back to, we've had enough of that kind of psychological stuff now, let's go with the in-your-face stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like there's not a lot of substance to it, you know.
No, it's like a sort of easy, easy win, I guess. And if you're gonna go down that route, unless there's a really strong story behind it, like Saw was always quite cool because it had this ongoing sort of thing about.
Well, the first one was a brilliant twist. You know.
And it's like, okay, what, you kind of went more into the John, whatever his name is. I was going to say John Craven, but that's Country File. There's the age references. But, you sort of went more into his backstory a bit rather than the gore and stuff. But, you kind of almost feel like if you're going to go into all that sort of super gore, it's kind of almost better if there was like a humour element to it, and you sort of put it back as like a Sharknado, trauma-y kind of low budget
Piranha 3D.
Yeah. Kind of thing. But yeah, as I say, it's probably just like traits and fashions at the moment going round, and those sorts of things are. And I've noticed like a big sort of upturn on people using like social media as like a horror subject, and things as well. So I watched this film yesterday, was it the day before, called Cam, that's about a girl who's like she's a cam girl, and someone steals her identity.
What's a cam girl?
It's
explain this in a PC way, Martyn.
It's a lady who dances online for money.
Okay. That's fine.
And so she realised someone's hacked into her account and is putting videos up. She looks identical to her, and so she's trying to stop sort of like what's going on there. And it's that kind of thing of like the horror is like the woman's need for attention. And like taking away her likes, and the whole thing is that she wants to get into like the top 10 of cam girls, and she's at 50 at the moment, and all this sort of thing. But again, like the twist on that at the end is another sort of almost like Black Mirror kind of like look at technology, as to who the imposter is, and you know all the things. So there's all that which is getting a bit more real to life too. Yeah,
in terms of real to life stuff, I know that it's a very old story, but I thought the new version of The Invisible Man was excellent.
Oh, it was awesome.
Fantastic in the way it sort of mirrored what domestic abuse victims go through, and people not believing them and not having like evidence, and you know, I thought it was brilliant. Yeah,
there's like, as you know, we were just saying then about the sort of trend of really gory stuff, and actually it's maybe more the psychological stuff now, and so there's been like quite a lot of supernatural horror kind of recently too, which is great, but there's also, I kind of feel like there's going to be a nice sort of trend of like just normal people horror, like, because it's scarier if it's just a crazy person.
I know.
Then there's no monsters, there's no ghosts or the devil invocations or anything like that about it. And there's a really good, let me get my notes, there's a really good film from a couple of years ago called Bleed With Me. It's about a couple goes for like cabin in the woods in winter, but the woman's friend comes along, and the friend is convinced that the woman is drugging her and stealing her blood, and so it goes into this sort of like spiral of, is the friend crazy, or is the woman trying to actually steal blood?
That sounds interesting.
And it's that sort of that thing of like
original.
There's no like The Invisible Man, you know, there's no magic or anything involved in it. It's just someone who's really unstable and you're locked in a house with.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I like that because I find that really, it makes you think, doesn't it? And it's good writing, really good writing. So is your moment the TV moment with the rats? Did you say a box of rats?
I said rodents because I didn't want the place is hot enough in here. I didn't want it to catch fire. Probably go with that, because that's the thing that always sort of comes back to me.
Okay.
I think I'd usually say something like Poltergeist as well, just because I watched that when I was way too young to watch it. But yeah, that, or like, as I say, the scaring myself with film posters maybe did it.
Excellent.
I'll shut up now.
No, I love it.
Mine was Child's Play.
There we go.
Everyone has a birthday they'll always remember.
Can we open my presents now, Mommy? A good guy! I knew it! I'm Chucky.
He's something, isn't he?
This is Andy's.
Time for bed, Andy.
Good night, baby. Good night, Aunt Maggie. Good night, Chucky.
Everyone knows most accidents happen at home.
How did that happen?
This is no accident.
Andy!
I'm Detective Mike Norris, homicide.
Andy!
Miss Peterson's dead, Miss Barkley. She fell from the kitchen window.
Someone's moved in with the Barkley family, and so has terror.
Mommy, I know who was on the counter. Andy!
Who, Andy?
Chucky.
Nobody believes you about Chucky. He came alive in my hand.
Oh, for God's sake.
Why won't you believe me?
Because I'm sane, Mrs. Barkley. Sane and rational.
No one believes the truth. Or lives to tell it. There's nothing nice about murder. And there's nothing innocent about child's play.
I watched Child's Play when it came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're not 40.
So I was probably 5, maybe 4 or 5. I can't remember how old I was. And that film terrified me to the point I didn't watch it in its entirety till I was 38, and I was with you.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen it. And even up to now, I've watched all of them. I think they're really good. It's actually on my list as one of my favourite horror films for that reason. But even in my 20s, seeing Chucky, I had a reaction to it.
Now, I haven't seen Child's Play. Can you just explain the plot really quickly?
Man gets shot in a toy shop. He does black magic wizardry. He
have
grabs
seen
toy, sticks himself in the toy.
Yes.
The toy has to put himself in another person, and that's kind of the toy's job.
Yeah, no, I have seen it, sorry.
Yeah. I could have explained that better.
No, it's perfect.
Well,
that's exactly what happened.
I recognised it as soon as you started, so it can't be that bad. I have that similar sensation to Spitting Image.
Okay, yeah.
After seeing Spitting Image, and it was before we moved to the Isle of Man, so I would have been year 2 or 1 or 2.
Wow, yeah.
And I cannot handle their faces, which
Well, they were so grotesque.
Yeah.
very grotesque.
Being because I remember that age, and it was on at 10 or whatever at night, so you weren't supposed to be up then. Even the massive age gap between us, I was still that sort of age where you're not supposed to be,
Yeah.
And because you were so young, you don't get that it's supposed to be humour. It's just these horrible, and it's like, oh, that bit looks a bit like that lady off the telly from the news or something. But yeah, I completely get that.
Even now, I'm not a huge fan. Mine would be the Blair Witch Project.
Nice.
This is my home, which I am leaving the comforts of for the weekend to explore the Blair Witch. I can see you.
I'm real excited about this. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm very glad.
This area's been haunted by that old woman for years.
I don't know why you have to have every conversation on video.
Because we're making a documentary.
Not about us getting lost. We're making a documentary about a witch.
I don't.
We're lost. Admit that first.
No, I know we're not lost.
You're all over the place.
So how do we know it was people?
Well, even if it wasn't, I'm not going to play with that either.
And it's all because of me that we're here now. Hungry and cold and hunted. Just want to apologize to Mike's mom and Josh's mom and my mom.
Tell me where you are, Josh!
What is that? I'm gonna die out here.
Just remember, I watched it. I don't know why. I went to uni and was really homesick for the first semester, so I decided to stay in my room and watch the Blair Witch Project for the first time. And then I had to keep the lamp on for 2 nights, I think, to sleep.
Nice.
I just couldn't. I don't know what it is about it. I mean, I was reading that, what was it? Oh, that they were supposed to have a scene where they kind of saw the Blair Witch.
Okay, yeah.
And in the scene, they're like, oh my God, what is that? What is that? What is that? And the cameraman was supposed to pan left and see sort of a woman wearing a white dress in the distance. And the cameraman forgot. So then they just didn't
Wow,
read.
happy accident.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Because that's what I find most terrifying, is that you just hear them so frightened and you just don't see what it is
Yeah.
that's
They fixed that in a
causing
second.
that. Yeah. Well, it didn't hold up as you would expect at first.
No.
But the second still frightened me.
I'm not sure it was that scene. That is the one, isn't it, where you see the witch running around?
I don't know.
Is it that? And it looks really comical because she's stooped over.
Oh, it could be. I'll be honest, I've only seen it once, and it was on in a pub one night when when I was in there, so I was sort of going, oh, this is
Yeah.
that the sort of new one, which I can't remember what year it's from, but where they've got the drones
I enjoyed that.
is really good.
What's
And
that?
she's like, so it's the same. It's basically like Heather. Sorry, not Amanda. Heather's brother. It's like 20 years later.
Oh
And
no, that's the one I've seen.
No.
Wait.
So
sorry.
you got the original one.
Yeah.
That's the 3 in the forest.
In the students who go missing.
Yeah, and they do their own
Yeah.
film footage. It's all grainy, and the guy stood in the corner at the end.
Oh yeah, that scene.
So there's one that was only a few years ago.
Right.
That's basically like Heather's brother, who's like, she's still in there, so I'm convinced. So they go out with cameras.
Is that, and that's Blair Witch 2?
No, that's like Blair Witch
separate
Legacy
thing.
or something.
I
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Blair Witch 2 was done not long after Blair Witch 1, which was done more like a film.
Okay.
And it's, as I say, I saw it in a pub, but I can't remember what it's got all about. It's completely, it's not like, I don't think it's like point of view camera or anything.
No,
Okay.
to the point where sometimes when you get films where what's the one with the 2 monsters in it, really good, Wreck the City, like modern day thing.
What?
They need to make a sequel of it and they never do it.
Got
It's
Godzilla
like
in it?
found footage monster film.
Oh, Cloverfield?
Yeah.
Right.
And they've decided to not make Cloverfield 2. They just keep grabbing films which are nothing to do with Cloverfield and slapping the name Cloverfield on
Yeah.
it.
Oh
I've
yeah, but
noticed that.
I enjoyed that 11 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah,
so
that
it
was
John
really
Goodman.
good.
That was
Yes,
awesome.
that was
Yeah,
nice.
that didn't need Cloverfield on it. That was just good.
Yeah, it was really good.
But that's how Blair Witch Project 2 felt.
Right,
It could have just been. It could have been
Like
any
its
other
own
film, and
yeah.
they've just slapped the
Slapped the
label
name
on
on
it
it.
and thrown it out the door.
Yeah, I guess because it came out in 1999.
Yeah.
Kind of the first of its kind. Would
Yeah,
you say?
well, especially in like Hollywood, because you had like the last broadcast, but that was like quite underground.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as sort of thingy. And then there's a
Ghost Watch, BBC. Did you see that in
With
1992?
Craig Charles.
I don't know. I know
can't
they
remember.
had Michael Parkinson was in on it.
Yeah.
And it really frightened me.
Yeah.
Because people were like, is this real? And apparently with the Blair Witch Project, people were sending the main actress's mum like sympathy letters because
Yeah.
were convinced she was dead or missing.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first film really that took advantage of the internet and like marketing on it, because they built like a memorial website and like invented like the police department to put the missing posters online and
Yeah.
stuff. And so I remember some friends of mine were over from Canada, and they were talking about it like before it came out over here, and so like, oh my god, there's this film, and like it's not a film, it's the actual footage, and they just found it, and so they've released it, and it's crazy. So I remember going to see that at the cinema. And
Another excellent marketing.
oh god,
like,
absolutely,
strategy.
yeah, they absolutely nailed that, and I think they needed it as well, because if you just had that as a film sort of standalone on its own without all that,
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't have got anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say about the real scary thing is that you don't see the witch at any point. You barely see anything, because again, like the Egger stuff, even in the daytime, it's not the height of summer. It's autumn, the skies are grey,
Yeah.
everything's just a bit murky. And you can sort of relate to the characters and how frustrated they're getting about being lost, and
Yeah.
well, it's that immersion thing that you were saying, Lee, about what makes a good film.
I do like horror. I think I've spoken to you both about this before. I do like horror films where I don't know who the actors are.
Yeah,
Because I find their horror more. I don't know. I just feel it more.
Yeah, well, you've got to be a great actor for people not to go like, oh, there's Indiana Jones just running away from that thing. Or I
Yeah.
keep using Indiana Jones for some reason, but I mean that's the good thing about like Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
Because with him in like The Lighthouse and him in it's completely gone. What's the one with Charlotte Gainsbourg and they play the couple that are grieving and they go out to the forest?
I'm just thinking of Spider-Man.
Definitely not Spider-Man. That's gruesome as well. If you ever get a chance to watch it, and I get a chance to remember it, that's a really good watch.
What, Spider-Man?
No. I'm just going to try and quickly.
Yeah, try and find it. I think Toni Collette, she's someone who's obviously very famous, but she convinces me. She's made for horror films. Her face does terror really well.
she's great in Hereditary as well.
Hereditary.
It's like-
That would be the modern one that really got me. I really struggled to watch it. I thought it was excellent, but it haunted me.
Yeah, that's just a great one because it has got that. I guess because it's so family oriented, and it's not sort of until sort of nearer the end really that you understand that there's that like occult thing, and that it actually happens, like when the husband goes up on fire, but you're already invested in the family at that point, so it doesn't really matter that that all the crazy magic stuff has happened. I'm thinking of Antichrist.
Oh, Antichrist.
Yeah, which
I've only seen clips of Antichrist.
Right. Yeah, that's a. Yeah, it's a really good one. But again, it's that, like, Willem Dafoe's such a good actor that you kind of just forget it's Willem Dafoe and it's just this guy.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll see you in another couple of years.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome.
Book it in.